Ladies and gentlemen watching, before I take you into this unbelievable story that will leave you speechless, let me say this. If you are from the USA, the UK, or anywhere in the world and you love stories that twist your emotions, test your judgment, and reveal shocking truths hidden behind everyday faces, then hit that subscribe button right now, because what you are about to hear is not just another tale, it is an eye-opening journey that will grip you until the last second, and trust me, you do not want to miss the next stories we bring, so subscribe, turn on the notifications, and buckle up, because this one is going to shake you. Now, the story begins on a quiet late afternoon in a small town on the edge of the highway where the roar of engines from passing motorcycles was a familiar sound, a place where diners smelled of fried food and gasoline lingered in the air, where leather-jacketed bikers often stopped to rest after long rides, laughing loudly, clinking beer bottles, and talking about roads conquered and scars earned. But on this particular day, their laughter was cut short when a small, thin, trembling boy, no older than 12, came running across the cracked pavement with his sneakers untied, his shirt stained with sweat, and his eyes darting back and forth like a hunted animal, and with a desperate voice, breaking between sobs, he cried out to the bikers, "Please, please, you have to hide me. Don't let her find me, I beg you," collapsing almost to his knees in front of the leader of the biker crew, a tall, bearded man known only as Diesel, whose reputation on the streets was equal parts fear and respect, and the bikers, rough around the edges but not heartless, froze in confusion because rarely did children ever approach them, let alone beg for protection, and Diesel, pulling down his sunglasses, knelt to meet the boy's eyes and asked, "Hide you from who, kid?" But the boy only shook his head violently, whispering, "From my mother, she'll kill me if she finds me. Please, you don't understand, you have to hide me." And as Diesel's crew exchanged puzzled looks, one of them, a burly man with tattoos creeping up his neck, muttered, "What kind of boy runs from his mother like that?" While another, a woman named Roxy with fire-red hair tucked beneath her helmet, leaned closer and said, "Look at him, he's terrified, something's real wrong here," and the boy clutched tightly to a worn-out backpack slung over his shoulders, holding it like it was the only thing that kept him alive, refusing to let anyone touch it, and when Diesel gently reached out to steady him, the boy flinched like he'd been burned, eyes wide as if even kindness was foreign to him, which sent chills through the group, because these bikers had seen many strange things on the road, but never a child this broken, and so Diesel stood tall again, gave a nod to his crew, and said, "All right, kid, you're safe with us, no one's gonna hurt you here," ushering him into the diner where the bikers had gathered, but as they sat him down and tried to get answers, the boy barely spoke, only repeating fragments, "She'll find me, you don't know what she's capable of, I can't go back," and every time anyone's gaze shifted to the bag, his grip tightened, his knuckles turning white, and Diesel, experienced enough to know when a secret was boiling under the surface, decided not to push too hard yet, instead ordering food for the boy, though even when a plate of fries and a soda was placed before him, the boy only nibbled a single fry before staring nervously at the door as if expecting a monster to burst through it, and while the bikers tried to make light conversation, tension settled in the air, because they all felt it, the kind of fear that wasn't just about a strict parent or a bad home, but something darker, something dangerous, and sure enough, moments later, as the boy suddenly ducked low under the table, Diesel noticed headlights slowing outside the diner, followed by the sharp screech of tires, and a black car rolled into the lot, tinted windows reflecting the neon sign, the kind of car that didn't belong in this rundown corner of town, and the boy whispered in a panic, "She's here," shaking so badly that even the tough bikers' hearts ached with sympathy, and when the car door opened, a tall woman stepped out in a dark coat, her posture straight, her movements precise, her eyes scanning the area with a predator's focus, and without even asking the waitress inside, she marched toward the diner with the kind of confidence that announced control, and the bikers looked at one another, unsure whether to step in, but Diesel had already made up his mind, because something about this woman's presence was wrong, too cold, too sharp, and when she pushed open the diner door, her heels clicking like gunshots against the floor, she smiled tightly and said, "Excuse me, gentlemen, I believe you've seen my son, little thing, dark hair, backpack, easily frightened, he belongs to me," her voice calm but carrying a dangerous undertone, and though the bikers were not saints, they had a code, and something in Diesel's gut screamed that this woman was lying, or at least not telling the full truth, so he leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, and said, "Sorry, lady, can't help you. Haven't seen any kids around," buying the boy a moment, but her eyes narrowed, sharp as blades, scanning the room, almost sensing his presence under the table, and that's when the boy clutched Diesel's leg from underneath, begging silently not to be given away, and Diesel, without hesitation, tapped his boot twice on the floor, a signal his crew knew well, meaning, Protect, don't break cover, and so Roxy, quick thinking, stood to distract the woman, asking with a mocking tone, "Funny, what kind of mother scares her kid so bad he runs to strangers instead of you?" Which made the woman's face twitch for the first time, her mask of calm cracking slightly, before she hissed, "You have no idea what you're interfering with," and with that, she turned sharply, leaving the diner with the same cold confidence, but the threat lingered in her wake like smoke, and when the car finally drove away, the boy crawled out from under the table, sobbing into his backpack, muttering, "She won't stop, she never stops, she'll come back," and Diesel placed a heavy hand on his shoulder, promising, "Then she'll have to go through us first." But what none of them knew then was that the real storm was only beginning, because inside that bag the boy clung to so desperately lay something that could not only explain his fear but also put every single one of them in more danger than they had ever faced on the road, something shocking enough to turn protectors into targets, and as night fell outside the diner, the first of many shadows began to creep closer, setting in motion a chain of events that none of them could have ever predicted. The night outside the diner thickened like ink spilled across the horizon, the kind of darkness that made even seasoned bikers feel the chill of unease, but inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above the tense group, and all eyes were on the trembling boy who sat clutching that battered backpack as though it were the last lifeline between him and the abyss. And though the bikers had seen guns, drugs, and blood on their journeys, the way this boy's small fingers clamped to the straps, the way his wide eyes flicked toward the door every few seconds, suggested that what he carried was not ordinary, not a toy or a keepsake, but something heavy with consequence, something dangerous enough that even his mother, who radiated a sharpness like a knife drawn too quickly, wanted it badly, and Diesel, who had led his crew through backroad wars, betrayals, and ambushes, leaned forward with a voice low and firm, "Kid, if we're gonna protect you, we need to know what's in that bag." But the boy shook his head fiercely, tears streaming down his face, whispering, you can't look, if you do everything will be worse, she'll know, they'll all know," and Roxy, crouching beside him with a gentleness none of her brothers in leather could ever show, brushed his hair back and said, "Honey, whatever you're hiding, it's already making your life hell. Maybe if we know, we can fight for you," but the boy only curled tighter into himself, clutching the bag against his chest until his small frame shook, and Diesel, sensing that pressing harder would only break him, raised a hand to signal patience, because he understood trauma. He'd seen men on the battlefield choke on silence the same way, and while the crew sat in uneasy quiet, the diner door creaked open again, this time only the weary cook stepping out to take the trash, but everyone's heads snapped up as if a bullet had just been fired, because they all felt the same thing. That woman wasn't done, she'd be back, and probably not alone, and sure enough, the boy whispered through trembling lips, "She works with them, with bad people, you don't know what she'll do to you for helping me," and when Diesel asked softly, "Them who?" The boy bit his lip until it bled, refusing to say, but the fear in his eyes screamed louder than any words could, and the bikers exchanged glances because this was no ordinary domestic drama. This was a storm tied to something bigger, darker, and far more dangerous. So Diesel stood, clapped his hands once, and declared, "All right, we're not sitting ducks in here, everyone saddle up, we're riding," which made the boy panic, pleading, "No, she'll see me if we're on the road. She'll find us anywhere," but Diesel crouched down and growled, "Listen, kid, hiding in one place makes you a target, but out there, we move fast, we decide where the road takes us, not her," and with a reluctant nod, the boy allowed them to lead him outside, where the roar of engines filled the air like thunder, and for the first time, a flicker of awe crossed his terrified face as he saw these beasts of chrome and steel lined up like soldiers ready for war, and Diesel lifted him onto the back of his own Harley, instructing, "Hold tight, no matter what. You don't let go," and when the engines roared to life and the crew thundered down the dark highway, the boy pressed his face into Diesel's back, clutching both him and the bag as if anchoring himself in the storm. But behind them, in the shadows of the tree line, headlights flickered, another set of vehicles tailing silently, unseen except for the glint of steel under moonlight, and as the bikers rode hard into the night, thinking they had left danger behind, the woman in the black car was already on her phone, her voice cold and venomous, "They've got him, they've got the bag. Follow them, don't lose them, and remember, we need the boy alive, but if the bikers get in the way, burn them off the road," and as the line clicked dead, her crimson-painted lips curled into a smile that did not belong on a mother's face but on a predator's, because this was not about maternal care, it was about power, control, and something locked inside that bag, something so important she would scorch the earth to retrieve it. And while the bikers rode unaware of the shadows following them, the boy began to murmur half-sentences against Diesel's jacket, words like, "files," and "proof," and "he never wanted me to see it," and "she killed him," until Diesel's stomach turned cold, because the fragments painted a picture of a family torn apart by secrets darker than crime, and the boy, too exhausted from adrenaline, finally fell asleep against him, clutching the bag even in his dreams. And when they reached an abandoned barn on the outskirts of town, one of Diesel's old safe houses, they parked the bikes inside, shut the heavy doors, and gathered around a dim lantern. But before they could plan, the sound of tires crunching on gravel outside froze everyone in place, and Diesel quickly ordered silence, everyone drawing knives, chains, and pistols from hidden compartments. But instead of an attack, only the echo of footsteps approached, slow and deliberate, followed by a man's voice calling, "Diesel, long time no see," which made Diesel's jaw clench, because that voice belonged to Hunter, a former brother-turned-enemy, a biker who had betrayed the crew years ago and disappeared into the underworld. And when he stepped into the faint light, scarred face smirking, eyes gleaming with malice, Diesel understood instantly. The woman was not alone. She had recruited Hunter and perhaps his entire rogue gang to retrieve the boy, and Hunter's gaze fell on the child like a hawk spotting prey, his smirk widening. Well, looks like you picked up." Half-drawn, growling, "Not another step," but Hunter only chuckled. "You think you can protect him? Do you even know what he's carrying? That bag of his? It's not candy and toys, it's fire, it's death, it's enough to make governments bleed, and you're harboring him like he's some stray pup." And the boy whimpered, clutching the bag tighter, and Hunter leaned slightly forward, eyes cold. "Give him up, Diesel, and maybe I let your crew live to ride another day." But Diesel, his loyalty heavier than fear, spat back, "Over my dead body." And so the barn became a cage of tension, two sides of the past colliding, the boy at the center of a storm he never chose. And though Hunter eventually retreated into the night with a final warning, "Enjoy the time you have, brother, because when she comes, she won't ask twice," the damage was done, because now the bikers knew they were up against more than one enemy. They were up against a force that blurred the lines between family, betrayal, and power. And as the boy sat shaking in the lantern light, Diesel finally crouched before him again, voice heavy. "Son, we can't fight blind anymore. You need to tell us the truth, what's in that bag, and why your mother wants it so bad." And this time, perhaps shaken by Hunter's words, perhaps by exhaustion, the boy's eyes welled up and he whispered, "It's my father's, it's everything he found out about her, about the people she works for, files, names, money, proof. He told me to run before she could get it. And then she killed him," his voice breaking into sobs, and the bikers felt their blood run cold, because the implications were vast. This wasn't just a cruel mother, this was a woman tied to something criminal, powerful, and organized, and that bag was a weapon that could topple empires, but it was in the hands of a child, and now in the protection of a biker gang already marked for destruction. And as Diesel stood slowly, absorbing the weight of what had just been confessed, he muttered to himself, "What the hell have we stepped into?" But no one could answer, because outside, in the distance, headlights reappeared like hunting eyes in the dark, and the low hum of engines not belonging to their own crept closer, signaling that the woman and her allies were already circling, ready for war. And the only way forward for Diesel and his crew was to choose: hand over the boy and his shocking inheritance, or fight against a darkness bigger than anything they had ever faced, a fight that would either destroy them or make them legends. The night deepened into a suffocating silence broken only by the creak of wood and the faint rustle of rats in the barn rafters. But inside, the bikers huddled like warriors before a battle, faces grim, weapons close at hand, the boy asleep in a corner with his backpack still clutched to his chest, and Diesel paced slowly, his boots echoing on the dusty floor, mind racing with the boy's confession, because if what the kid said was true, then inside that tattered bag wasn't just some papers, it was dynamite in the form of truth. Evidence against an organized network his mother belonged to, a network powerful enough to kill her own husband and chase her child across the country. And for the first time in a long time Diesel felt the weight of responsibility that went beyond biker loyalty, beyond codes and brotherhood. This was bigger, this was history burning inside a child's hands. But as dawn's first pale light cracked through the wooden slats of the barn, the rumble of approaching engines shattered the calm, and Diesel's heart sank because he knew before he even looked, she was here, and not alone. And sure enough, when he pushed open the barn door, he saw a convoy rolling down the dirt road, black SUVs and Hunter's renegade bikes leading the charge, dust rising like smoke, headlights glaring like predator eyes, and at the center of it, stepping out in her sharp black coat, was the boy's mother, her expression cold and victorious, flanked by armed men with rifles, and she called out with a voice that carried across the field, "Diesel, hand me my son and the bag, and maybe I'll spare you a burial today." And her words sliced through the morning air like blades, but Diesel only stepped out further, his own crew forming a line behind him, leather jackets creaking, weapons gleaming, faces hard with defiance, and he shouted back, You want him, you'll have to come through us, and I promise you it won't be easy. And for a moment, time froze, the two forces staring each other down like armies at the edge of war, until Hunter rode forward on his bike, engine growling, smirking. I told you, brother, you can't protect him, you're fighting against something you don't understand. And Diesel spat on the ground, eyes burning. I don't need to understand. I just need to stand. And with that, the standoff erupted into chaos, engines roaring, guns firing, the barn exploding into a battlefield, bikers swinging chains and bats, bullets punching through wood, sparks flying as steel clashed against steel, and in the chaos, the boy huddled in the corner, screaming as the bag was ripped from his hands by one of the mother's men. But before the thug could escape, Roxy tackled him, stabbing a blade through his arm and wrenching the bag back, shouting for Diesel, and Diesel grabbed it, slinging it over his shoulder as he fired 2 shots toward advancing shadows, dragging the boy to his side. But the mother herself stepped into the barn, gun in hand, eyes locked on her son, and for a split second, her mask of cold power cracked, revealing something like desperation, and she shouted, "You don't understand, that bag doesn't just expose me, it exposes everyone, governments, corporations, men who think they're gods, and they will burn the earth to take it back. I'm the only one who can keep him alive." And Diesel barked back, "You lost the right to claim you're his mother when you killed his father." But she shook her head violently, her voice rising. "His father was weak, he wanted to play hero, but you can't fight monsters with truth, only with control, and I can give him that." And the boy, trembling, shouted from behind Diesel, "No. You killed him because he wanted to save me. You don't care about me, you only care about the bag." And the words stabbed sharper than any blade, freezing her for the briefest second, long enough for Diesel to lunge, knocking the gun from her hand, and the barn erupted in close combat, fists, knives, boots slamming into flesh, blood painting the dust, bikers falling but refusing to surrender, Hunter charging Diesel with a chain wrapped around his fist, their blows echoing like thunder as years of betrayal spilled out in violence, and finally Diesel drove his knife into Hunter's side, whispering through gritted teeth, "Brotherhood doesn't mean betrayal," before shoving him to the ground. But as Hunter gasped his last, the mother seized her chance, grabbing the bag from where Diesel had dropped it in the fight, clutching it to her chest like a crown, and she ran out into the morning light. But the boy broke free, chasing after her, screaming, "Give it back, it's mine, it's Dad's." And in that moment, something unexpected happened. The mother turned, face twisted with rage, but her hands shook, the bag slipping slightly, and she whispered, almost pleading, "You don't know what they'll do to you if you keep this. You'll never have a normal life, you'll never be free." But the boy stood firm, small fists clenched, tears in his eyes. "I'd rather die free than live as your prisoner." And Diesel, battered and bleeding, stumbled out behind him, gun raised, and barked, "End of the road, lady." And for the first time, she faltered, eyes flickering between her son and the weapon pointed at her. But pride, power, and madness won over mercy, and she screamed, raising the bag as if to smash it into the dirt. But before she could, a single shot rang out, echoing through the dawn, and she collapsed, bag tumbling from her grip, dust swirling around her lifeless body, and silence fell heavy, broken only by the boy's sobs as he clutched Diesel's arm, whispering, "She's gone, she's really gone." And Diesel knelt, pulling the boy into his chest, murmuring, "You're not alone anymore, kid, you've got us." And with trembling hands, Diesel picked up the bag, unzipped it, and for the first time looked inside, and what he saw stole his breath. Stacks of files, hard drives, photos of powerful men in suits shaking hands with criminals, ledgers of bribes, proof of murders covered up, entire empires built on corruption, enough to bring governments crashing down if revealed. And Diesel realized then why the boy's father had died, why the mother had chosen power over family, and why the boy's life would never be simple again, because he was now the keeper of a weapon deadlier than bullets, the truth. And as the sun finally rose, casting gold light over the blood-stained barn and the broken battlefield, Diesel stood with the boy at his side in his crew gathering, battered but alive, and he said, voice gravelly but resolute, "This isn't the end, it's just the beginning. If we ride with this truth, the world will hunt us, but if we ride without it, the boy's father died for nothing. So brothers, sisters, what's it gonna be?" And one by one, his crew raised their weapons, their fists, their voices, declaring loyalty to the road ahead, and the boy, though still trembling, stood taller, clutching the bag not with fear but with purpose, because in that moment he understood. His family was no longer the mother who betrayed him, but the bikers who chose to stand for him, bleed for him, and give him a chance at freedom. And as they rolled their bikes out into the rising sun, engines roaring once more, the dust of the battlefield fading behind them, the legend of the boy and the bikers began to take shape. A story whispered on highways and in back alleys, a story of betrayal, truth, and shocking revelations carried in a battered bag. And for those who hear it, one warning always follows. Never underestimate the desperate plea of a child, because sometimes inside his bag lies not innocence but fire, and sometimes what you find will change everything you thought you knew about loyalty, family, and the price of truth.